Hello, I'm Julian Darklight, part of Quantum Inquisition, and a friend of Spencer E. Oswell is a good friend of mine. She wanted me to make a video for New Bros reviewing different scanning techniques. The one we're going to be covering right now is combat scanning and wormholes. I'll show you a few tips and tricks that wormholers use to uh, target and track prey in a wormhole. And a lot of people like to launch all their scan probes and get a general scan of the system and then work their way down, which is useful in a larger fleet fight, but it's not really that useful if you're trying to stealthily sneak up on a target. We're going to demonstrate how to do that today a little bit more efficiently. The first thing you want to do is remain cloaked in space if you can. First thing I usually like to do is warp to a celestial, burn off on it at a weird angle, cloak up, burn off at a weird angle as you see here. I'm not really sitting directly in line with any other point. If they warp to this planet, they're not going to decloak me. So you see we got your combat scanners loaded. They're going to be your blue probes. They're going to be sisters probe launchers, and combat scanners and regular scanners just tend to work a little bit better and still have a decent cost compared to the more specialty type probes or the T1s. Cheaper than the specialty probes, and they're more effective than the T1 probe. So I'd highly recommend using them, especially since you don't have to have like T2 skills or anything. For New Bro, that's pretty easy. On the ship, we're running obviously a cloaking device, T2 cloaking device with this buzzard here. I'm running a couple of overdrive injector systems just so that when I do a cloak micro warp drive, I can get away a little bit faster, put a little bit more speed between me and where I was. Here's your important stuff. Over in your mids, you've got your scan acquisition array, your scan range finding array, and your scan pinpointing array. These vastly improve your scanning capabilities in general. You want at least some of these on your scanning ship. Puts the cost up a little bit, but it's worth it. Here we're going to take a look at scanning skills. As you can see, mine aren't to 5, but 5 is where you really want them if you want to be the fastest scanner out there. You want all these skills at 5. I've got mine at 4, and but I can generally do whatever I want pretty quickly either way. But if you get those to 5, it's a vast improvement. The biggest one, your scan acquisition array and astrometric range finding. Astrometrics needs to be to 5. That's a vital one. Astrometric pinpointing is pretty good too. I need to get that one up myself, but as you see here, these are the ones you mainly want. To go into wormholes, I would recommend you have at least all these skills at 2 or 3 just to go in, so you don't get stuck or lost. Alright, so now we're going to demonstrate finding a target on the field and how to get him without hopefully alerting him to your presence. If he's watching D-scan and your directional scanner is here about this, your directional scanner pretty much tells you everything that's in the system that's visible and not cloaked. If they're cloaked, you can't see them on D-scan, which is a big issue. A lot of people think they go into wormholes. A lot of new bros think they go into a wormhole and just, if as long as they watch their D-scan, nothing's going to happen to them. It's just not correct. Things can slip in between pings of your D-scan, and then next thing you know, you have a T3C decloaking off of you and you're dead. So keep D-scan open, keep checking it, but it's not a catch-all. So what we're going to do here is I see the Stratios on D-scan somewhere in the system. Got one of my friend Paul out there in a Stratios. He's going to be our target for today. First thing you want to do is reduce the size of your scan area to find out how close your target is to you. See here, I know he's not really in that same little. As you can see, I can pull. And I've got a few things on scan. I got the sun, planet 1, planet 2, planet 4. And the structures, he's not in any of this area. And he was on the previous one, so we're going to go back up. So I know he's somewhere in this area now. What I usually like to do is I like to go to a really broad angle. 90 degrees. And then generally just start checking the big points I think he's going to be at. If that's combat sites, whether that's planets. The best way to do this is to hold V while you click on an object. And sometimes it can be a bit touchy, so don't get upset if it doesn't immediately spin your directional cone in that area. Just play with it, you'll get it. As demonstrating here, as you can see, we just spin that cone around a different area. So now I found him. I know he's on planet 7, or maybe anything in that little area there, maybe a site, maybe one of these sites here that you have to scan down, like we've gone over in the previous video. These signatures, he might be at a signature, he might be at the planet, so we're going to see. My first instinct, he's probably at a signature, but I'm going to check the planet just to be sure. So I lower my radius to 15 degrees, and sure enough, he's still on the planet, somewhere in that area. So now I've got him pinpointed to just this little area. So what I'm going to do as a result, I'm going to decloak, launch probes, cloak back up. You can hit your micro warp drive, hit your cloak button, and you'll get one cycle out of your micro warp drive while moving really fast, hence the use of the overdrive injectors. And I'm getting away from my probes really quickly so nobody says exactly where I'm at.
Autopilot engaged. Autopilot disabled.
I'm going to quickly put my stuff over where he's at planet 7. You saw me get a little bit distracted there. I moved my D-scan cone around, but in general, if this is a serious hunt, I know exactly what planet he's on. Drop that probe a little tighter. The reason I usually scan out at 2 instead of 1 if I do something like this is I'm worried he might be on a safe. I'm just getting a little extra area. There. You pull your scan probes. Say you warped within 20 of them. I've got a... So you spit with the long point, your long point. You rarely want, especially if you're the warp in or the hunter ship, generally don't want to land straight on top of your target. I generally warp at 10 or 20 once I've combat scanned somebody, provided I have a point. As you can see, he's sitting here in his Stratios, and I'm 20 off of him, 19 now. A combat ship, I could either approach. If I'm going to be a warp in, I could be keep it whatever range my fleet needs to land. We're going to simulate here by doing I don't know, keep it 75. Say they're all fit with scrams and they need to be within scram range. I'm slowly just going to slip up on him. At this point, I'd probably be calling for my fleet to drop in and warp to the target. Definitely be calling at that point. Alright. Paul, one of your safes, and we'll demonstrate from there. This one's going to be a demonstration of something that's a little bit more difficult. My friend here is going to go to a safe somewhere in system. And it's a personal safe, so I know nothing about it. We're going to kind of demonstrate from here how to find. And see, in a system like this, say I end up in a situation like this where I don't have enough combat scanners, my probe launcher didn't automatically reload. What I'll do is I'll check the system to see if there's anything off D-scan for me. And for me, it's this planet over here. I'm going to warp to one of these, to this planet at 50, try to get off D-scan from everything else in system. In some systems, this isn't an option. Some systems are just really small. And other systems are so large, there's many, many options. In this system, there's pretty much just one. Check my D-scan. I don't see anything on my D-scan, so I'm going to assume I'm going to have to take the risk of decloak and to reload. If you don't, this is why you should always carry 16. I lost some recently, so I forgot to reload it. But this is a demonstration of what can happen in wormhole space, demonstration of what can go wrong. Say you're like me and you forgot to put 16 probes after you lost some back in there, and now you're stuck into this reload. You got to decloak to reload, right? This is the best way to do it. Warp to a, hopefully nothing's around you. There could be something cloaked here, but you don't know that. It's just a risk you're going to have to accept. Reload your combat probes. Cloak back up. Gonna warp back to the planet where I have him on D-scan. What we're doing here is going to be a little bit different. Same thing as before, you try to find out his approximate range to you. Alright, you know he's pretty close. This can also work if you're like if you determine somebody's on a signature, but you're not sure what signature it is, and or maybe they're sitting at a safe, they think they've safed up, and they're not really going to do anything, and maybe they're not watching D-scan, hopefully, so they don't warp off. So I know he's somewhere in this area, so for a more focused scan, D-scan to try to find out where he's at, I'm first going to go to a major cone and I'm going to do my standard thing like check all the locations. And when I realize he's not on any one of these major locations, it's going to be a little bit of a different problem. Okay, so I know he's in this general. Do my pinpoint on the planet, and he's not there. So I'm going to just keep increasing that cone size. So now I got him on D. I missed one in between that. He's not there, but he's there. He's in the bigger cone. He is not in the smaller cone, which tells me he is somewhere in the ring between the edge of this cone and the edge of the next cone. Which is not that big of an area. It's a pretty good sized area, but still, it's not as. Now we've narrowed him down a little bit more. I'm going to go here. We're going to go to a slightly smaller cone size. You can manually control your directional scanner by dragging an empty space. Oh, I got him. Alright, so now I know he's somewhere near this planet at a safe. And honestly, that's about as good as it's going to get. I mean, he could be at this signature. I know he's at a safe because I told him to go to a safe, but he could also be at the signature. And say I don't have the system scanned down, it's the same result. I have to scan him now. So, what we're going to do is, we know he's in the general area. If you line up planet 7 with the sun, you know he's just high to the left. So what we're going to do, is we're going to go to our previous long distance, the point off D, the long distance point off D scan.
Warp drive active.
Get off D scan for him. Good hunter should, if they can avoid it. Put your D scan out. Make sure it's still nothing over here. The launcher sisters. They populated back in the similar. They almost always populate back where they were before. They're still around. In real time, they're still around my ship, but they'll populate like on the screen in general where you last left them, so you can send them back to that location. So far enough. So right now he can't see my combat scanners, and I know he's somewhere in the area to the high and left of the sun when you line up Planet 7 with. So we're gonna do. We're gonna scan this one at 2 AU just to be a little safe. And now he's definitely seen my combat scanners. I'm just hoping to get this done before he knows. So he's barely on the edge. Don't have to be super exact, just get those probes over there on him. I'm going to give him as little time to react as possible. Immediately pull and warp to your optimal.
Warp drive active.
Immediately pull your probes and warp to your optimal. You don't want him to see those. Want those to be on scan for him as short a period of time as possible. And this doesn't always work. I mean, people see your stuff and maybe they'll warp off, but this is pretty much how you do it. You find somebody that is safe. Safes are generally going to be near planets and other celestials unless they drop them in between a long warp in. And that pretty much, we're only going to go over one more thing for combat scanning. See, these are the formations like we talked about in the previous. You've got your multiple formations up. The only time you'll really drop out a pinpoint, because it's the most accurate one, is if you want to scan a whole system at once for some reason, during a larger fleet fight, or just trying to find somebody really quickly. Maybe a capital or something can't leave that quickly. I personally don't use it that much, but others do, and I'm going to demonstrate it. You can pretty much cover the whole planet like this. I mean, the whole system, or the whole system like this. Get an idea for what's around. Especially on a large system, this can be really useful. So you got an Isabella Citadel, a bunch of cosmic signatures, mobile projectile. Just random stuff. Alright, and that pretty much closes out how to do combat scanning. There's a lot more to it, but if you're going to be just newly going into wormholes or involving yourself in wormhole combat, it's pretty much the meat and potatoes of what you need to know. Until next time.